Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today, comparing JD Edwards and NetSuite. My name is Steve, and I'll be your host. As we get started here, I just want to explain how you can participate in today's web event. You should see a control panel on your screen that looks like this. If you have any questions as we go along today, please just type your questions into that GoToWebinar attendee pane. We'll collect all your questions and then answer anything that you submit throughout the webinar today. Very happy to be joined by Mike Mahana. Mike is Terillium's NetSuite practice leader. He's got great experience in your shoes as someone who works in a company that runs an ERP system, but then also as a consultant. Mike is also president of the Ohio NetSuite user group here at our headquarters in Cincinnati. And Mike is going to show us the NetSuite software demonstration today here in just a few minutes. I will introduce NetSuite to you and compare it to JD Edwards. Before I started our practice doing NetSuite implementations at Terillium about 4 years ago, I was a JD Edwards consultant. I specialized in the financial modules of JD Edwards for about 20 years and ran JD Edwards implementations as a project manager. So I know JD Edwards very well, and we'll be talking about kind of the differences between the two today. First, I'll introduce NetSuite to you, kind of explain what it is. We will compare it to JD Edwards. I'll kind of compare and contrast the way the two systems are different. We'll look at a JD Edwards customer, the Indianapolis Zoo, who moved from JD Edwards to NetSuite, and kind of talk about that journey and how it went for them. Mike will then show us the live demo of NetSuite. You'll get to see what it looks like, and he'll walk through the system and even do some transactions so that you can get a good feel for it. And then at the very end, we'll talk about how NetSuite implementations are a little bit different than JD Edwards. If you haven't been introduced to Terillium before, we are an ERP implementation firm. We specialize in implementing Oracle's three main ERP systems: Oracle Cloud, JD Edwards, of course, and definitely NetSuite. We've been doing that for about 27 years. We have about 170 full-time consultants all across the United States. They're very experienced consultants. They average about 16 years of experience. We've won many Oracle awards. We're most proud of our Customer Success Story of the Year awards. We always say we're only as good as our last implementation, only as good as our last customer reference at Terillium. And so we're very focused on those customer references. We think that's really the key to our success, is implementing these ERP systems in a way that brings a lot of value to our customers, to the extent that they are willing to stand up and say we did a good job for them at the end of the implementation. We've done this many times, over 700 ERP implementations over our long history. When it comes to NetSuite, we are a certified NetSuite solution provider. We help companies evaluate NetSuite, and specifically for JD Edwards companies, we help companies take a look at what their options are with JD Edwards. I mean, certainly you have the option to upgrade JD Edwards. Terillium's been implementing JD Edwards for 27 years. We're a JD Edwards company, so we think that's a great solution, and there's certainly a lot of value there. Other companies look at where they're at with JD Edwards and decide to move to something else. And we can tell you what that looks like and what the pros and cons are of looking at NetSuite and even looking at Oracle Cloud. So we help a lot of companies compare those three systems and those three different paths and try to figure out what the best way forward is. Certainly we help companies purchase NetSuite. We resell the licenses. We clearly implement NetSuite, and then we also have a NetSuite support offering for companies that are live on NetSuite. So let's look at the NetSuite product and kind of world of NetSuite. A couple of things we always point out is that NetSuite was the first cloud company. So NetSuite was founded as a cloud ERP system. That's all it's ever been. It was never a server-based system that later moved to the cloud. It was started in the cloud, and I'll kind of talk about why that's important here in a minute. Another thing that we point out on this slide is 21,000 customers on NetSuite. To compare that to JD Edwards, the numbers fluctuate a little bit, but some people say 6,000, some people say 7,000 on JD Edwards. NetSuite's about 3 times that in terms of the number of customers in the world. So it's a very popular system, and that can bring some benefit that we'll talk about as well. In terms of what's in NetSuite at a high level, everything you think should be in an ERP system: financials, distribution, manufacturing, and then some things that might surprise you a little bit. It definitely has HR payroll, which not every system does. Of course, JD Edwards does. But it also has CRM with marketing automation built right in. So a lot of times we're competing with Salesforce when we look at the CRM within NetSuite, and it's a very user-friendly CRM. It's a little bit different than how I typically look at the JD Edwards CRM. The other thing that's very different within NetSuite is that it has an e-commerce module called Suite Commerce, and that is a web storefront. So with NetSuite, you can publish your web storefront and transact with your customers where they can buy your products right on the web. That's built in to NetSuite. I think that's pretty unique. Outside of that, in the middle there, single data source sounds a lot like JD Edwards. There's one database. The GL is at the middle, just like it is with JD Edwards. Everything that affects the GL hits right away in NetSuite, just like it does in JD Edwards. And then it also entails the Suite Cloud Platform, which are the tools you use to develop and extend NetSuite. Just like JD Edwards, it's got those tools built in. And then the multi stuff around the outside, multi-language, currency, country, and subsidiary, just like JD Edwards. That Suite Cloud Platform really has more than what a JD Edwards has in it. You certainly have reporting tools to build your reports. You have something called Suite Connect, which allows you to do integrations, whether those are real-time API integrations or more of the batch integrations. That's all possible within NetSuite, similar to JD Edwards. Some might argue that NetSuite's a little easier than the JD Edwards Business Services. Suite Script is programming within NetSuite, where you can actually write scripts or do custom coding within NetSuite. And then as you go to the right, the visual workflow within NetSuite, we find most NetSuite customers build their own workflows. That's pretty different than the JD Edwards world, where workflows are kind of hard and technical. The visual workflow tool in NetSuite is pretty easy to use. So a lot of those tools that you think of that are really great in JD Edwards also exist in the NetSuite world. So not just applications, but in the cloud, you do have the tools to customize the application, build scripts, integrate to other applications. Some people are surprised at that. They think that cloud applications are not customizable, but NetSuite definitely is. Customers in many different industries. So when you ask what industry is NetSuite good in, it's kind of like JD Edwards, all of them. Software, services, asset-based, nonprofits, manufacturing, wholesale distribution. So it kind of runs the gamut of many different industries. Some people don't associate NetSuite with manufacturing, but it does have very strong and very robust capabilities within its manufacturing modules. So that's a surprise to some people, but really running the gamut of the different industries. So far it seems kind of similar. So let's kind of compare what the differences are. One, we talked about 21,000 customers versus 6,000 in JD Edwards. I'll talk about each of these in more detail, but at a high level, that means the benefit to you in having more people run your ERP system, the real benefit is that other guys integrate to NetSuite. And we'll talk about that in more detail and specifically what that means. With all the customers, they're all on the latest version of NetSuite. All NetSuite customers get upgraded twice a year through automatic upgrades. You leave on Friday, you come back on Monday, you're on the new version. And in our 4 years of having a NetSuite practice, Terillium's never made $1 of revenue on a NetSuite upgrade. That's because as NetSuite built their system, they build it as a cloud-based system that users can customize, that customers can customize. And all of those customizations roll forward in an upgrade. So that means you never have to pay for another upgrade when you have NetSuite. None of our customers have ever paid $1 for their upgrades in consulting costs or software costs. We'll talk about that more too. NetSuite might equal less annual costs than your current system. Even though it's a SaaS solution and you have to pay for it continuously, we'll take a look at one customer who moved from JD Edwards to NetSuite, and every year they save money doing that. NetSuite has no batch anything. Everything is real time. There are no batch jobs. Reports run now in real time. Journal entries get entered in real time. They're posted in real time. There are no batch jobs that run in NetSuite. The implementations are much faster in NetSuite. Our target is 100 days for a NetSuite implementation. We'll talk about that at the very end of the webinar, how we do that, but I typically estimate about 25% of the time versus a JD Edwards implementation. And then it has real business intelligence built in versus OneView that I have some direct experience with. Mike is going to show you the real-time, real business intelligence built right in. You can take a look at that for yourself. So let's talk about, why do you care if NetSuite has 21,000 customers? Well, more people integrate to it. And this is a slide that we used as we were presenting NetSuite to a customer who was thinking about buying NetSuite, and they ultimately did. And they asked, how are we going to integrate with our existing Salesforce solution? We have Salesforce, we like it, we want to keep using it. How will NetSuite get integrated to our Salesforce CRM solution? Well, that's the benefit of having 21,000 customers. Salesforce has an integration for NetSuite. It's already built. Salesforce built it. Salesforce supports it. Anytime you get Salesforce upgrades or NetSuite upgrades, Salesforce will upgrade your interface as well. And you don't have to build an interface to your Salesforce system. It's already built. And you will find most of your solutions that surround your ERP system have already built integrations to NetSuite because everybody runs it. The same thing over on the right here, FedEx and UPS. NetSuite is pre-integrated to those two things. Now, in this case, NetSuite built the integrations, but it's already integrated. In JD Edwards, we have to customize integrations to FedEx and UPS. You don't have to do that with NetSuite. It's already integrated. And same thing, a lot of the NetSuite customers run Avalara for tax. Some of them do run Vertex. I know most of the JD Edwards customers run Vertex for their tax solution. Both of those are already integrated to NetSuite. So really, for this customer, they asked about those 4 things, and we had great answers, right? Everything's pre-integrated, but really most of the other solutions that you're running outside of your ERP system are already integrated to NetSuite. So that's really the value to you of having lots of people out there running a solution that you're looking at. So I'll talk a little bit more about all NetSuite customers are on the latest version of NetSuite, and that means no more upgrades. And I think this is a huge consideration for you if you're considering, do I upgrade JD Edwards or do I go to something like a NetSuite? You know, in the JD Edwards world, anytime you upgrade, you're probably looking at a pretty significant cost event to have a team of consultants come in and upgrade your system. With NetSuite, we've never done a NetSuite upgrade at Terillium, not because they're not out there, but because upgrades for NetSuite customers are non-events. They happen, they're automatic, and all the customizations roll forward. So the way that the proof point we offer for that is that every NetSuite customer in the world is on the same release of the software. They're all on the latest release. 2 upgrades happen every year. You get minor upgrades throughout the year. They give you a preview environment for your upgrade, and you can test and make sure everything comes forward, but all customizations come forward. They built the system knowing that people will customize it and that they're going to have to upgrade it continuously if it's a cloud system, and they just built it that way. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. You're always on the latest release. You get the latest regulatory updates. You get the latest technology that comes out. When revenue accounting rules change, you get an update that fixes that for you in your NetSuite system. and you never have to pay consultants for an upgrade. So I think that's pretty significant. If you're looking at what the cost of, your long-term cost of having a system is, you can take out the cost of upgrades. The other big difference here is no more hardware to manage. NetSuite is a cloud solution, so that means that you don't have to buy or manage servers. Oracle does that for you. Some things with that are your uptime is guaranteed. Oracle guarantees a 99.5% uptime on NetSuite. They have a website called status.netsuite.com where you can check to see what the uptime has been over the last year, and it gives you stats like how many transactions have been performed in NetSuite over the last year. It's billions of requests, and the status all across the world of what's going on with NetSuite. Over the last year, it's been 99.98, and Oracle guarantees that to always be at least 99.5. With that, you get all of the scale of a multi-billion-dollar company like Oracle managing your solution for you. Redundant data centers, Oracle's security team always watching the system. These data centers have physical security where armed guards are not letting anyone into the data centers. They do data mirroring, disaster recovery, failover, fire protection, heating and cooling, and backups. It's true multi-tenancy with multiple layers of redundancy. So that's how they're able to achieve all of that uptime. And they're always watching the security. I know a lot of people still are worried about security in the cloud. I always sort of challenge them and say, well, who's watching your system now? And how can they compare to the scale of Oracle in terms of keeping a system secure? So I think that's a benefit, certainly the security, the uptime, and really not having to manage that hardware anymore, not to mention the cost savings there. When you talk about those costs, NetSuite might save you money every year. One particular company, the Indy Zoo, realized this. The Indy Zoo was looking at an upgrade to their JD Edwards system because support was coming to an end. That meant that they also would have to upgrade the operating system on their servers. They were also paying yearly maintenance to JD Edwards. Those three costs, the upgrade that they were going to have to pay for, the operating system upgrade, and their annual maintenance were less, those three costs were more than what they were looking at for NetSuite. The fees to run NetSuite and the cost to implement NetSuite over the period of 3 years was less to move to NetSuite. They actually save money now every year that they run NetSuite, and they got a new modern system out of that. So I thought that was pretty shocking that you could pay for a brand new implementation, move to a new system, and save money versus upgrading and maintaining your old system. So those numbers, I'm not going to share their specific numbers, but if you'd like to take a look at what those numbers would look like for you, we're always happy to work with you on that, to look at what would be the cost of a JD Edwards upgrade, which is the right answer to a lot of our customers, but what is the cost of a NetSuite migration, which might be a better answer for some of our customers. So if you want to take a look at that and try to figure out what the best answer is for you, we're always happy to engage in an ROI assessment of your different paths forward. So that is a service that we offer. We talked about no batch anything. The much faster implementation, I'm going to get into the details of that at the end of the webinar. But again, I'm typically thinking in terms of NetSuite takes about a quarter of the time to implement versus a JD Edwards implementation. And I estimate both here at Terillium. So I could help you with the details of what those two things look like. And lastly, the real business intelligence. This is a screen print of what a NetSuite dashboard looks like. But Mike's going to log in here live next and really show you what that looks like in real time here in his NetSuite demo. But the last thing I'll say about the differences is really a similarity in that I think NetSuite feels a lot like JD Edwards. And as Mike goes through his demo today, I think you'll get the feeling that, this seems like JD Edwards. When we were talking to the Indy Zoo about moving to JD Edwards, they were a little, I'm sorry, we talked to the Indy Zoo about moving from JD Edwards to NetSuite. They were a little hesitant because they love JD Edwards, and their finance team loved JD Edwards. Their AP team liked using JD Edwards vouchers and payment processing. And so their users were a little hesitant. As we started the implementation and we got into conference room pilots and they sat down at the NetSuite screen and started using it, we heard a lot, hey, this feels like JD Edwards. It kind of feels the same, and it does. You'll get that sense when Mike starts to do his demonstration. So the zoo found that from a user perspective, yeah, they like JD Edwards, but NetSuite feels like it, and it offers a few bells and whistles that JD Edwards doesn't have. It's a little bit more modern, I'd say, than JD Edwards feels. The zoo was able to actually save cost every year, get that new modern system. We moved all of their JD Edwards data over to NetSuite so they didn't lose anything in the migration, and they've got some new capabilities in their system. And Mike was actually the project manager for that zoo implementation, so he's a good guy for us to have here today. We're happy to have him, and he's going to log in here and give us a live demonstration of the NetSuite system so that you can see kind of firsthand what that looks like and start to get a feel that, you know, it's not really a night and day difference from the JD Edwards system that everybody really is happy with from a user perspective. So Mike, welcome to the webinar today. I think we're excited to see NetSuite here.
Great, thanks Steve, and thanks everyone for joining today. We go through the NetSuite instance here. So the screen that you're looking at is an environment in which I'm logged in. Up here on the top right, you can see I'm logged in as Cameron Murdoch, who is a CFO. And because NetSuite is a role-based system, when you log in, you can have one or many roles assigned to you and permissions assigned to those specific roles. So if you can see certain subsidiaries or certain customers, those roles would provide that security for you. Whenever you log into NetSuite, you're presented with a dashboard that's specific to your role. And so NetSuite has an implementation methodology and really a software methodology that's called Suite Success, in which case it is a pre-configured environment for your industry. So if you're in manufacturing, they have a Suite Success that's configured for manufacturing. If you're a distribution, for that, and what they've done is they've said, you know, we've implemented thousands of manufacturers, thousands of wholesale distributors, or not-for-profits, or you know, agency. And so what they've done is they said, we've looked at what customers do after that first year. What are the things that they're looking at? What are the things that they're evaluating? How are they using the system? And they've put a lot of those features in there. So a lot of the things, these KPIs and other features, and even the roles, are configured already for you. So there's not a lot of, we're not starting at base zero and then I gotta, you know, configure everything. So so it's a lot easier to get to that value point when you start using NetSuite. So again, we're looking at a CFO role. As far as the menu options, basically anything up here and above is the same no matter what screen you go to. So as I navigate around, these will always be here. I can always come back to my home dashboard, which is what we're seeing here. And then NetSuite has a search bar, and this is the Google of NetSuite. It will go anywhere in the system that the role that I am in will allow. So I can look for customers, I can look for vendors, I can look for customer purchase orders. So I know that there's a customer out there and they have their PO 90. It'll go out and find that sales order. As I start to type that, it will go out and look for anything that meets that criteria. So there's a sales order out there, there's an item receipt, there's an invoice. So there's a variety of things that's happening here. And I think this goes back to that, you know, single version of the truth. There's no, you know, database for CRM. There's no database for accounting. It's all in that same. And so this this feature kind of explains or shows you that capability to really kind of navigate around within NetSuite. Within the dashboard, there are a variety of what we call portlets. So this is the reminders portlet, this is the KPI portlet, and let me just talk about a couple of them. The reminders portlet is really, for me as the CFO, when I log into NetSuite, what are the things that I need to do today? It's almost like your to-do list. And so you can see I have a couple bills to approve, I have some authorizations, some bills, and some periods to close. I'm really behind on closing my periods. But again, you know, it's kind of, hey, what do I need to focus on? And so these can be set up. You know, right now I've got quite a few of them here. It only displays when there are numbers that justify that, and then I can add to it. So I can have standard ones or custom ones that I create. So again, even though there's a lot of functionality in there for your specific industry, you can continue to customize it and then really focus on it, because there might be, let's say, a purchasing agent. There might be 2 purchasing agents, and so I need to focus on the East, and maybe Steve's the other one, and he's focusing on the West Coast. And so we have different reminders that we can set up, and so there's a lot of customization that can be done for you. But like if I look at this bills to approve, if I click on this, it'll take me to the list, and I can say, okay, yep, I see that. I expected that, I'm good with that one, and that one, okay, and I click submit, and it will approve those, and then they will show up in accounts payable. Until this point, these are bills that are transactions in NetSuite, but they don't have a GL impact. Once it becomes an approved transaction in NetSuite, it does have a GL impact. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. So, so now we're back at the dashboard. A couple other things here. One of the things that I really think is important, and you know, is when you're navigating and when you're using NetSuite, in your current system, there's a lot of transactional activity. How do I kind of keep the wheel going? Well, within NetSuite, there's a lot of automation that does it, and it allows you to focus on running your business. And so the KPIs are a very important tool, and they become really important when there's no batching, like Steve said. I don't have to go out and make sure, are these numbers accurate, because I didn't batch the invoices. So if I look at, you know, expenses, if I want to look at this quarter versus last fiscal quarter, I can compare those 2 numbers here. And you'll notice as I hover over these, I can drill down into them. So anytime you kind of get that option, I can look at that information. And you know, and so I can again configure as many KPIs as is important, and it allows me to kind of a jump off point, like, wait a minute, I didn't expect to see that many expenses this month. What is that number? And I can jump down into it. And you have up to 4 4 focus areas that you can have displays up here. So you can look at that information. Again, I can jump down into what that is. What's really powerful about this dashboard is I have the ability, so there's what, 1, 2, 3, 6 KPIs set up, and you can see some of these are quarters. Well, what if I want to look at month over month? So if I want to come up here, I can select to look at things this month versus, let's go back to, actually, let me go back to just a regular, this month versus last month. I click done. Now what NetSuite does is it runs through all of those KPIs and metrics here and starts comparing the numbers for me. So I just took 6 reports and I made 12 out of them. So I can look at things in a variety of ways. And again, it gives you insight into your business and determine, okay, what action do I need to take? Is everything functioning properly? So again, those are your KPIs. If you're a company that has multiple subsidiaries, NetSuite puts a subsidiary navigator on here, and so you'll see here I've got expenses, you know, KPIs. I can come in here and say, well, just show me for the child. And so now all of my dashboards and you know all my portlets here are now only presenting the child subsidiary 1. Now there's no data in child subsidiary 2, but when I click on that, you'll see everything should drop to 0. Oops. So again, it allows me to kind of navigate around and really not have to jump into a bunch of report menus to look at it. I can look at the information right from here. So again, those are, you know, 2 different or 3 different types of portlets. There are other portlets that you can have. We can have list views. So, you know, some bank balance information. Here, let me put this back to the parent. And then I can have cash projections. I can have bank reconciliation. So there's a lot of information. And if I wanted to move any of this up, let's say I wanted the KPIs at top, all I have to do is just simply drag it and move it up. And so you can customize that for your use. So again, a very powerful way to kind of look at some of the KPIs. Here's a little KPI meter that allows you to look at that information in a little bit different way. And then same thing here, I can kind of navigate around and view that information. NetSuite's kind of taken that dashboard and said, you know what, not only for just your dashboard, but let's do it for customers. So if I go click up here and click on the customers, now I am looking at the customer dashboard, and it's for all customers in NetSuite. So I can see specific information to them and what's applicable. And so again, I can customize this. So I can come up here and say, well, I actually want some recent records or maybe a specific search in here that would be more applicable for me. And so again, I can configure that if I'd like, and again, have multiple portlets within this customer dashboard. So they've got that for customers. So I do the same thing for, let's drill down a little bit further. So if I go CUS Smith, so what I've done is rather than telling it to go out and look for everything that has Smith in it, I'm limited to just look for customers. And I'm going to look at this dashboard for Smith Supplies, who's one of our customers. And I'm going to click on the dash. And so we were looking at the dashboard, which was the CFO's view into the organization. Now we were looking at the customer dashboard. I'm sorry, customers as a whole. And then now I'm looking at a customer dashboard for Smith Supplies. And so again, I get this KPI feature, and you can see how much information is quickly at hand for me that I can look at this customer if I was going to call them for some opportunities, or if I was, you know, looking at how healthy they are as far as sales and accounts receivable. I can do all that information from here. And then it is also a launching point for a variety of other reports and activities. So if I wanted to create a quote, I can jump right from here and do that. And so it's a very powerful tool for that. I have the same thing available for me on the vendors. So here is the vendors dashboard. So it's all vendors that are out there. And so I can see all that information. And I can do the same thing for the vendor record. I can look at the information specific to a particular vendor. So the features of dashboards, they've done a really good job, and it allows, I think, roles to be really specific on what they want to look at and focus on the health of the portion of the business that they're managing. Let's take a look at some of the other reports that are out there. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And because NetSuite's a browser-based system, and a lot of people have multiple windows, I don't have to just stay within this one dashboard. Okay, I can open up multiple windows. So I'm going to open up an income statement, and I'm just going to say I hit Control and then click, and you can see it open up another tab up here. And so I can put those on 2 different windows if I want, if I'm researching something. So it's a nice feature, and you can have as many windows as you want open. But if I look at this income statement, so now we're looking at it, the income statement from October of 2020 to December of 2020, and it's comparing it at the subsidiary level. So the parent, I can do the child, child 1, child 2, and then we do have an elimination subsidiary. So if you need to run that consolidated, you can do that, and that's what this is doing for you. But if I look at this, you know, I look at the numbers and I'm like, okay, that's good for that, but I want to see that by month. So this is, again, an option here where I can come over to the column and I say, well, you know what, let's run this actually by accounting period. And I click refresh. So now it still takes the periods, but then breaks them out, and I can see, you know, see how things looked. If I wanted to say, you know what, actually I want to look at that for last fiscal year, it can do that for me also. So there's a variety of, you know, instead of having to specify the actual period, I can use available selectors. Excuse me. But again, I can look at this, and it's not just a, hey, how do I want to use this? I can drill down into it. And so if I go in and say, well, I want to look at what that 472,000 was. So if I do that, I can click on it, and it takes me into the detail. And because it's a real-time system, there's no batching. All of that information is at hand, and I can drill down into it. And so now I'm looking at all of the invoices in October of last year that posted and are making up this $472,000. And I see one, here's an invoice, invoice number 45, and for $4,654. And let's say that I wanted to look at that information, I can do that. So I can just simply click on it, and it'll take me to that actual invoice. And so now we're looking at the invoice record. So when this was created on 10/26 last year, this is the invoice, and down here are the items that were sold on that invoice. So again, a great way to kind of start at the top and kind of work my way down to see more information about that. Some of the other, you know, because we're all sitting in one database, I have the ability to start jumping from the invoice. I can look at the original sales order. And so this one, this invoice 45 is created from invoice number 41. And so if I want, I can actually drill down into that. So I'm going to open up another window up here. And here's sales order 41. And, you know, one of the things that you'll notice here is you'll say, Mike, you know what, the sales order form looks a lot like the invoice form. You can control what these forms look like. And, you know, if you looked at that and said, gosh, that's a lot of busyness on the screen, we can cut those down. Or we can say, you know what, I actually want this document date up here, and I want the subsidiary information here, and I don't need the rest of this sales information. So those forms can be customized to your individual needs. You can have more than one form for a particular transaction. But again, we're looking at this particular sales order, and that, you know, when it was created, and then again, the items, and as it went through this sales process. So it was fulfilled, it was invoiced. If it was an open sales order, how many were back ordered, you know, or still back ordered, and so on. And so you get a variety of information that, again, that you can customize and display here. Okay. So again, if this is in this situation, you can see this particular sales order has already been billed. If the customer wanted to return, I can come right back in here and click authorize return, and it'll take me to that return screen, and I can process that return. And if there's approvals for that, it can go through that approval routing. Okay. So again, if I look at the invoice, we jumped to the sales order, but there is also related records that you can see here. There was a payment because this invoice was paid in full, but there was a payment on 11/23, and it was for the amount of $46.54. And if I want, I can drill down into that. And so if I go over here, let's take a look at the payment, and let's see what payment method did they use. And so we can record that payment information here. You can also have a credit card integration. If you guys do take credit cards, it will process that right from NetSuite. You don't have to go to out to a third-party gateway. So again, those are the options, and you know, kind of shows how those different records are linked. So if I go back, and let me go back to the recent records, and so here's that sales order. And And let's take a look at some of the setup on these items. So, kind of show some of the features within the items themselves. So looking at items, you can have a variety of items, whether they're inventory, non-inventory, other charge items, which are items that don't have a specific, they just have a revenue account, so it's something that you charge for. But there's a variety of information that can be stored on the record. So what its name is, particular pricing and any discount levels that you guys offer. So if you guys have multiple pricing levels and, here are pricing levels that would get assigned to a customer, and then what their associate price would be. Either here's the actual price or here's the discount that they would get. And again, in whatever currency you defined your organization uses. On the accounting, this one is a inventory item, so it has a cost of goods account as well as an asset and then income account. So those are all features. And again, you can edit this if you wanted to create additional items, or this is an older item and it's now superseded by something else. You can create that new item and then reference this one. So there's a variety of ways to kind of track all of that. All right, let me go back and show you a couple more things here in the last couple minutes that I have here with you. If I want to go back and let's say I look at this income statement, within NetSuite, you have the ability, because it is a SaaS-based system, I can not only interact with it in a browser, in a tablet, or on my mobile device through an app, I can also interact with it without having to go, let's say, to Outlook to email somebody. And so let's say that I was running this and I, again, went back to run it by accounting period. And I was looking at the expenses and said, you know what, this automobile expense just dropped off or went, way above what I thought it was going to be. If I had a question and I wanted to email the, another individual, if you look down here, there's a variety of options you can choose. I can send it to Excel and manipulate it in Excel, and everybody loves Excel, and NetSuite acknowledges that, so they give you an option to send it right there, and then you can manipulate it and run, if you want to create a specific view off of it, you can. I can send it to PDF. I can also choose to email it, and so when I do that, it will email whoever I choose. So if I wanted to send it to a particular person, I can either look at people in our organization, or I can just type people's email addresses outside. And then I can type a message in, say, hey, will you check the expenses? This doesn't look right. And then I click send, and it will send an email from my email. It'll be received to that individual from my email address. So it's not a crazy, NetSuite email address. It is yours, because when I set up my user, it said this particular one. So again, I can email it, and if this is a report that I want to schedule. So if this is something that I've got a board that I meet with, or that I need to send an update to, I can schedule this to run every Friday at the last Friday of the month, or every 2 weeks. And I can specify the individuals that it goes to, and it can automatically send that out to them. The beauty of that is they don't have to have a NetSuite license to consume it. They can get the email, view the PDF or the HTML if that's how you want to send it, and again, they'll get information outside of NetSuite. So again, those are all kind of ways to not only consume data, but then to share it within the organization or outside of the organization, and then also to kind of quickly jump around from one record to another. So a lot of features here, and I didn't get into a lot of the transactional pieces, because I feel like, again, those when I process the sales order, process an order, it is the consuming and the managing of the business, I think, is where most clients start to transition when they're using NetSuite, and when they start in that first year, the questions that they're asking of the business is good, but when they get to that second year, they have the ability to ask harder and harder questions that maybe they want to ask now, and they do, but it takes 6 months to get done, or it takes 3 months and you need an answer in 2 days. And so those types of things, with the way that NetSuite is structured, allows you to ask those questions. So So hopefully you got some insight into, how NetSuite works and what it looks like, and the ease of use, I think, is the biggest thing. So I'm going to turn it back over to Steve, who's going to talk a little bit about implementations. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Nice demonstration. It's good to see that, real-time business intelligence in NetSuite, but then I think it's cool to see the financial reports in NetSuite that change in real time, and sorting the columns by date, changing how those reports look without having to rerun them. I think the financial reporting in NetSuite is a big kind of leg up over JD Edwards, having worked in the JD Edwards world for a lot of years. I'll remind everybody, as I start talking about the implementation here, I'm just going to spend a couple minutes on this. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail to bore you with implementation methodology, but if you do have any questions about anything we've covered so far, Mike's demo, or any things we've talked about, remember to type those questions in. We'll be taking questions here in just a couple of minutes, so send them in if you have any. The NetSuite methodology's goal is live in 100 days, and that, if you've gone through other ERP implementations, certainly JD Edwards implementations, that might feel too fast, but it's certainly achievable. The zoo went live in about 90 days. We took a startup customer live in 6 weeks, so more like 45 days. So 100 days is certainly achievable. The zoo only was using financials. So obviously, if you're using distribution and manufacturing, that grows a little bit. We had a distributor go live in 120 days. And that project did not feel particularly fast with NetSuite. It was a reasonable pace. So that goal, I think, is achievable. If you have distribution and manufacturing modules, it's probably a little longer, but not a ton longer than 100 days. And when I say 100-day implementation, I mean that we're taking a full implementation methodology approach to this, a consultant-led project where we are discovering your requirements in the analyze phase, configuring your ERP system, testing the configuration in a real conference room pilot where your users or core team members are on the keyboard executing tests in the software to make sure that it's functioning the way you need it to. We pass-fail those tests. Anything that fails gets resolved in an issue resolution process. Then we move into an integrated conference room pilot where we're testing not only single processes, but start to finish processes along with data from your JD Edwards system, integrations to other third parties that you might have, custom reports, so complete integrated tests, kind of a mock go live. And then we resolve issues out of that test, move all of your data over a final time for the cutover. In NetSuite, in our NetSuite practice, Terillium trains all of your end users. We believe that works a little bit better in NetSuite rather than us doing a train the trainer approach where somebody from your team will get trained and then go and train everybody else. Our consultants are professional trainers in NetSuite, so we think it works a little bit better for them to train your end users. Then we execute a cutover process, go live, and support you. So there are a lot of details behind all of that, and I'm happy to talk through those details with anybody who's interested, but didn't want to bore everybody on the webinar with me talking about an implementation for 2 hours. But that's the gist of it. It's a little faster because in NetSuite, there are not, thousands of processing options behind the sales order screen. There are certainly configuration options in how orders process, but not as many. And so the implementation really doesn't take as long in NetSuite, and especially with, as Mike shared with you, the Suite Success methodology, where some of the things are pre-configured. Certainly your user roles, security roles, all of those dashboards that Mike showed you are there on day one. So if you have a role of an AP manager, all of your AP dashboards are there and ready to go. So we don't have to set all of that stuff up, and that helps us a little bit, but really NetSuite just goes faster. And so we're going for that 100-day in our full cycle implementation. All right, so it looks like we do have some questions here that we will answer next. As I start those questions, I'll remind you of a couple of things. One, you should receive this offer in an email for an ROI assessment. Again, we're happy to take a look at what you're using now, what you're doing now in JD Edwards, what version you're on, what modules you're using, talk about where you're going as a company and translate that into a path forward, both for JD Edwards as an option or NetSuite as an option. And again, they're both good options. There's no bad choice here. I don't think upgrading JD Edwards is a bad choice. It's the right choice for a lot of people, but NetSuite is the right choice for other people. So we're happy to help you through that process and take a look at both of those choices that you do have. I'll also launch a poll here as we kind of talk through some of these questions. So take a look at the poll on your screen now as we start to answer some of these questions. All right, so Mike, I may need some help with some of these. Is NetSuite strongly connected with Dell Boomi? They are. That's a good question. And Dell Boomi acts as an integration package from NetSuite to other things. There are a couple of players in that market. Dell Boomi's one, and Celigo is another. Terillium is a Celigo partner on the NetSuite side, and we're a Dell Boomi partner on the JD Edwards side. So those are both good options in terms of an integration platform. I believe they both allow you to create custom integrations between NetSuite and something else, and they both have pre-built integrations for where they've done NetSuite integrations to other things. So yes, those are both vendors that play in the NetSuite world. And some other, names that you've probably heard before: RF Smart, Vertex. All of those guys are big in the NetSuite world. Okay, this next question, I could understand if you're on World and considering an upgrade, but if you're already on the latest JD Edwards version, like 924, why would you move? It would be easier to move JD Edwards to the cloud as we're already trailing. That's probably correct. And again, different paths for different customers. Yeah, if you're on the latest version of JD Edwards, there's really not a value proposition in making a lateral or even a slightly upward move to a different ERP system. Really, where that would make more sense is if you could be on Enterprise One, but back a few releases, 8.12 or 9.0 or even 9.1, and looking at the end of the Premier support. If you're evaluating, do I need to do a costly upgrade where I'm going to have to bring consultants in, or should I start to think about a cloud solution? I think that's really where your decision point lies. So yeah, if you're on the latest version of JD Edwards and you've maintained and stayed up to date, jump into another ERP system probably wouldn't be a good choice for you unless there's some big piece of functionality you're missing, which I don't see a ton with JD Edwards customers. What core application functionality improvements are there compared to JDE, like in financials or advanced pricing, et cetera? That's a good question. And there's certainly, if we got into the details of how those modules worked, we could explain probably a little bit more in detail module to module. But overall, I'd say, if you're in financials, the benefits you're going to get are NetSuite doesn't have batch jobs. I think that's a benefit. As you saw, Mike clicked on that financial report, it popped up immediately. It didn't have to run on a server. Mike didn't have to go to work with submitted jobs to look at his financial report. Then if he made changes to the parameters of that report, what year did he run it for? What department did he run it for? The changes happen in real time. He doesn't have to rerun it. So I think real-time financial reporting, real-time transactions give you a benefit. And we could talk about more of the kind of detail behind that one-on-one, I think. Does NetSuite support SQL Server database? NetSuite runs on the Oracle database in the cloud. So when you purchase NetSuite, you log into it on the internet. It's a SaaS-based solution, and it runs, and honestly, you never even see the database. It does happen to run on Oracle, though, as opposed to SQL. Is advanced BI analytics included in the base license? Yes, it is. That comes with NetSuite. It's not licensed separately. You don't have to pay extra for it. How scalable is it? There's no limit. There's no terabyte limit to the data that you can have in NetSuite. What industries do you see more fit for this transition from JD Edwards to NetSuite? You know, I don't know if I see a real industry difference between JD Edwards and NetSuite. They're very similar in terms of what industries they support. I think it's more about where you're at as a customer, what release you're on. Are you looking at an upgrade? Are you on World or E1? Are you on a recent version of E1 or an old version of E1? I think that's really what you're looking at. What, you know, where's your company going? What kind of skill sets do you have in-house? That's really what the decision factor usually is, rather than an industry factor. Okay, next question is a good one. Is there a direct conversion from JD Edwards to NetSuite for data workflows, or is it a new implementation from scratch with imported data? Drew, it is a new implementation. So there's not a conversion button or process that we can move your NetSuite configuration and data, move your JD Edwards NetSuite configuration and data to a NetSuite. It is more of a new implementation where we're importing your data into NetSuite, starting from our Suite Success Industry model for your configuration, but it's a new implementation rather than a conversion from JD Edwards. Now, I mean, the good news is Terillium knows both, and so it makes that process a little faster, but it is a process we have to go through. Interfacing to other on-site systems is the next question. Can we do that? Yes. So NetSuite is fully interfaceable, just like JD Edwards, and the options really are the same. You have, you know, REST APIs. You have SOAP APIs in NetSuite. You have automated batch interfaces. You have manual batch imports. So all of the interfacing options that you're familiar with are the same in JD Edwards and NetSuite. I'd say the difference might be in the NetSuite world, some of those on-site systems already have pre-made integrations to NetSuite because NetSuite is so widely used out there. Why should someone move to NetSuite as compared to cloud ERP, as Oracle is focused on cloud ERP these days? Yeah, you know, Oracle is experiencing high growth in both cloud ERP and NetSuite, so I would say that Oracle's focused on both. Certainly, if you talk to an Oracle cloud ERP sales team, they're going to be more focused on it because that's what they sell. But if you talk to the Oracle NetSuite sales team, they're more focused on NetSuite. So kind of depends on who you talk to. At the corporate level, when they report financial results, Oracle talks about both, and both is very high growth, both NetSuite and Oracle's cloud. The decision point on which one you would move to, I think, is more of a complex answer, and we would certainly be happy to help you. We do all three. We do JD Edwards, Oracle Cloud, and NetSuite. So we're certainly happy to help you through that decision point, what the pros and cons of each would be, and what the costs of each will look like. And we've helped several customers through that process. And honestly, it depends on the customer. Some customers are better off on JD Edwards to do an upgrade. Some customers choose to do Oracle Cloud, and some customers choose to do NetSuite. There's no right or wrong, good or bad answer to any of those. It's really dependent on where you're at as a customer. Okay, well, that looks like all the questions that we have. So if anyone submits others, we'll be happy to answer those directly after the webinar. But I do want to thank Mike for presenting the demonstration today, and thank all of you for taking time out of your day to participate in this webinar. We hope it was valuable to you, and we will be following up to offer you the ROI assessment. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.